Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of B-Flicks. I'm Gavin, and with me as always is my fellow bad movie connoisseur, Neville.
Today we're reviewing Super Fuzz, a cheesy 80s movie about a cop who gains superpowers, but there's a twist. We'll get to that later.
The first thing we have to mention is this theme song. It's just so over the top, and it's playing throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, it seems to play anytime Dave is performing some awesome feat. It's like Vader's theme. If Vader was a circus clown.
Yeah. So the movie opens with protesters at Dave's execution. He was accused of killing his partner. This is a ridiculous plot that we'll get back into later.
It's a bit of an unorthodox intro to have your hero on death row.
It appears that NASA has been doing some experiments with rocket launches. Of course, instead of doing these experiments over something like a barren area of desert or over the ocean, they decided to do it over a populated area, not far from town.
You know, there's a reason why NASA does most of their launches from the coast in Florida, and it's not because of all the brilliant people there.
I love how they just plan to fly a dangerous rocket over an area and just tell people to do some shopping or something.
Yeah, just come back later, after we've irradiated your homes.
And wouldn't you know it, our protagonist finds himself right in the area that the rocket's flying over, before he decides to fire his gun into the air to frighten a crocodile out of the boat he used to get here. And then the rocket just completely explodes before covering the entire area, including Dave, in radiation.
Everyone thinks that poor Dave is dead, but he shows up in town later and sees his sergeant directing traffic. He's able to catch the sergeant's attention, who absent-mindedly points to him and walks forward toward an open manhole.
It's at this point that Dave uses telekinesis to close the manhole so the sergeant doesn't fall in, thus discovering he has powers.
Who knew being blasted in the face with radiation gives you telekinesis? Neat! As Dave and the sergeant are riding back to headquarters, Dave yells out for the sergeant to stop the car. He tells the sergeant to watch out for some elephants.
About 10 seconds later, 3 elephants walk out into the intersection. You know, Dave, let's talk about something here. Had the sergeant just continued to drive, you would have been off the block and well out of eyesight by the time the elephants crossed the intersection, you know.
So, Dave has telekinesis, and can see into the future. When is Nick Fury going to give this guy a call?
After the elephants pass, the sergeant asks what he thinks will pass next. The light turns red, and Dave tells him he doesn't know.
So, spoiler alert, when Dave sees the color red, he loses his powers. This scene demonstrates that with the red light, and it's probably the most brilliant, if not a bit too subtle, scenes in the movie. It's all downhill from here, folks. Dave and the Sarge answer a call of a robbery on the 20th floor of a nearby building. When they get there, they rush into the building with their guns drawn. For some reason, the elevator isn't working, so they take the stairs. Check out these 2 buffoons climbing the stairs with their guns out.
Just like anyone with firearm training will tell you, you always want to whip out your guns and aim them haphazardly as you run up staircases. Bonus points for mostly aiming the gun at your police partner.
They come up with a brilliant plan to have Dave charge the door, but one of the robbers opens the door just as Dave charges, and he goes through the room and flies out the window.
And here we see another one of Dave's superpowers, the ability to transform into a lifeless mannequin so as not to be harmed in a 20-story fall.
If Dave is so clumsy that he would hurl himself out of a 20th floor window, how the hell did he survive up until this point without superpowers?
Every scene seems to introduce a new ridiculous superpower. Dave takes his girlfriend to a football game.
Are you sure it was football?
Yeah, Neville, I'm sure it was football.
What do you say so?
Anyway, he takes her to a football game and says he would rather be alone with her, so he makes everyone in the stadium just disappear.
Except one guy that's wearing red. So, was this guy still here because he was wearing red? If so, there had to be a lot of other people wearing red in this stadium.
Later, Dave tells the Sarge to stop a truck and says they're carrying counterfeit bills. They stop the truck, and Dave can't explain why it's just full of fish. The interior of the truck is full of red plastic.
This scene hurts my brain. If Dave can see through the walls of the truck, wouldn't he see the red plastic and not be able to see any further? Oh, maybe the darkness keeps him from seeing red. But then he wouldn't see anything because of the darkness. If he could see that the money was in the fish, why didn't he tell the sergeant to check the fish?
Honestly, I think you're just overthinking it, buddy. Let's move on before you give yourself a headache. This crap fest of a movie isn't worth it.
Dave decides to take his girlfriend to the beach, even though he can't swim. While she goes to change into her swimsuit, Dave, being the jerk that he is, decides to taunt some kids by playing telekinetic keep-away with their beach ball.
This is the first, but not the worst jerky thing he does. We'll find out later that this guy, he's a real creep.
Not content to just taunt the kids, he makes the ball go out into the water, and then tells the kids he'll go get it. He does his best Jesus Christ impression and walks on water out to the ball. Why didn't he just bring it back with his telekinesis? I mean, the guy can't swim. He's walking out on water. What's wrong with this guy?
Neville, I think he was just dick-waving here.
Maybe, but it was short-lived when his girlfriend comes back in a red swimsuit. He takes one look at her and plunges into the water.
She rescues him, and once she gets him to the beach, he just passes out.
I also noticed, when he went into the water, he was wearing boots. But now, for some reason, they're gone.
Some kid walks over and tells Evelyn that she should give him mouth-to-mouth. When she does, he flips her over and starts making out with her while this creepy kid watches.
He didn't need mouth-to-mouth. He was breathing just fine. This girl's just a warrior that wanted them to put on a show for her.
Later, we have a scene with the thugs of the story. Dave trolls them for a bit because they're here to pick up a celebrity named Rosie LaBouche, and the Sarge is obsessed with her. He stalls them long enough for the Sarge to move in and offer her a ride.
So, while he's stalling these guys, he makes them all do a field sobriety test. One of the guys has flowers, so he holds them for him. While they're flapping their arms and hopping on one leg, for some inexplicable reason, Dave starts eating the flowers. I mean, was this in the script?
In any other movie, I would say it's just the actor being weird, but after watching this movie, it was most likely scripted. It wouldn't be the dumbest thing we've seen so far.
So, one of the main points of this film is that he loses his powers when he sees red. There's a scene where he's chasing the bad guys. They're in a car and he's on foot. He passes several red cars without a problem, and at this point, he hasn't figured out that the color red affects his powers. So it's not like he was just focusing on the car he was chasing to avoid seeing red.
You know, as soon as I realized that he loses his powers when he sees red, I was looking for red in every scene. This happens throughout the film. If you really want to have a fun bad movie night with your friends, you could have a drinking game where you drink every time there's red in a scene and he doesn't lose his powers.
Whoa, Gavin. We don't have many subs yet. We don't want to risk any of them dying to alcohol poisoning.
Well, if we didn't want them drinking heavily, we probably wouldn't suggest them watch this film. This is actually the scene where he discovers his weakness. After talking to the bad guys and causing them to crash their car, he continues running and sees Silvius, a guy he knew from earlier that he thought knew the answer to why he sometimes can't use his powers. Silvius explains that it could be some little thing that breaks his concentration, like a sound or a color.
It sometimes only takes one dumb little thing to destroy your concentration. A place, a person, a color.
They turn a corner and Dave sees a red building and slams into the side of it.
Having figured out his weakness, he shows Evelyn in the Sarge. He has Evelyn bring a red swimsuit and he tells her to take it out while he's levitating, which causes him to crash to the floor.
And then we get to the scene that shows Dave in a whole new light. This guy is a creep. Evelyn says she's concerned about his powers and wishes he could be the way he was before. I really can't describe just how creepy this scene is. Words just won't do it justice, so you're just going to have to see it for yourself. Roll the clip.
I love you, but I want you the way you were.
Look, I can wash dishes, do the laundry, make the bed, chop vegetables just by thinking about it.
When you want to be serious, you can find me at home.
Freeze. Evelyn, I've got these superpowers, and there's nothing I can do about it. And you know something? I like them. And I think you'll grow to like them too. Look, I love you, Evelyn. And we're going to get married, whether you like it or not.
Man, if Harvey Weinstein could choose one superpower, this would be it.
Wow, so, yeah. Moving on. Dave goes to a club where he suspects he can get information about the counterfeiters that they were trying to catch earlier, and using his powers, he cheats at a game of pool. When the guy pays him, he confronts him about the counterfeit bills that he just gave them.
And Dave, being about as sharp as a bowl of Jell-O, flushes the evidence down the toilet.
The guy tells him who he works for, and Dave confronts the boss of the counterfeiting operation, and discovers that the base of the operation is a ship off the coast. Dave and the Sarge go to investigate. I guess all patrol officers are, trained helicopter pilots.
Once they get to the ship, the Sarge boards it and goes below deck. He looks at one door and then tells Dave that he doesn't see anything suspicious.
Yeah, great investigating skills here, Sarge. Sherlock Holmes, eat your heart out. No wonder you're still a patrol officer. After a few more seconds of searching, the Sarge finds the counterfeit bills, but the bad guys sneak up on him and hit him with a wrench and put him in the freezer.
When Dave gets back to the station, he's arrested because Rosie LaBouche, who was working with the bad guys, told the chief that she heard Dave trying to extort money from the boss of the counterfeiters, and that he'd killed Sarge when he found out that he was corrupt. Then, in the fastest arrest and murder trial in history, Dave is sentenced to be executed.
The director was Italian. I don't really know how fast trials happen in Italy, but in the US, murder trials can take years, and then people sit in prison for decades before being executed. But in this movie, nope, just seems like days, or maybe a few weeks at most.
The other thing that's odd is the characters are quick to assume people are dead. Earlier in the film, when the rocket exploded, they just assumed Dave was dead. And now, with no body and no evidence, they just assume Sarge is dead and give Dave the death penalty. I wouldn't want to work with these people. You come in 15 minutes late because you're stuck in traffic, and they've already assumed you're dead and hired your replacement.
So the execution scene is ridiculous on multiple levels. Rosie LaBouche, knowing that red renders Dave powerless, sent him some red flowers. Dave offers the flowers to the priest so he'll take them from the room. He could have just closed his eyes. We know that that works based on the demonstration Dave gave us earlier.
The most ridiculous part is Dave's plan to save the Sarge. For his last request, he asks for some chewing gum, and he sticks it in his pocket. They flip the switch, and he uses his powers to break free from the electric chair, and jumps through the wall. But check this out. It's clearly a dummy on a wire, and there's also no hole in the wall. Also, we have to assume that Dave could have crashed through the wall of the prison at any time, but for some reason he just sat there all this time, waiting for the right moment, when his buddy the Sarge is out there and likely needs his help.
And the absurdity doesn't even end here. After Dave talks to a fish, you heard that right, folks, he gets directions to the sunken ship from a fish. Somehow the power is still on in the ship, and the freezer is still working. Dave finds a frozen Sarge and uses his chewing gum to blow a bubble, and the two of them ride to the surface.
This is where the movie breaks Kirk Lazarus' rule.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
Let's forget that the bubble was made from one piece of gum. Let's overlook the fact that it was able to support the weight of 2 full-grown men, and it didn't pop under the pressure of the water at those depths. But it goes a step further. Apparently the director of this film thinks that all balloons or bubbles rise in the air. Was one of Dave's powers helium breath? Because the bubble doesn't stop at the surface, it rises in the air.
We're also overlooking the fact that the Sarge survived being frozen.
Well, now you're just nitpicking.
But wouldn't it have been safer to get the Sarge to the surface and then abandon the bubble and get him to dry land?
But remember, Dave can't swim. Well, except for when the script arbitrarily says he can.
Well, as long as there aren't any red boats passing by, he could have just Jesus walked his happy ass over to the shore.
Well, there you go, using logic again. Remember, Dave is a freaking moron.
So Dave sees the bad guys boarding a plane, and they have Evelyn.
Did you notice the bubble changes heights between shots? Sometimes it's a couple 100 feet above the ground, and then other times it's a few thousand feet in the air.
Well, now you're just nitpicking.
Sorry. It's just what I do.
Anyway, Dave jumps off the bubble and lands on the plane. Did you notice the bright red stripes on the side of the plane? Because luckily Dave didn't. If I was the director, I would have made damn sure that the plane didn't have any red on it.
If you and your friends are watching at home, time to take a drink.
Dave forces the plane to land, and the bad guys are apprehended. When the captain asks about the Sarge, Dave points to the bubble. The Sarge says he's going to jump, and Dave has to catch him.
Now, in a movie moment that would make Neil deGrasse Tyson give a TED Talk on how the education system has failed us, Dave catches the Sarge, and they penetrate the earth. When everyone runs over, there's just a hole in the ground.
Of course, the chief immediately assumes that they're dead and starts giving a eulogy. In the middle of his speech, an officer brings him a cell phone.
This was the 80s, folks. That big brick this guy is carrying was a cell phone, and it was state-of-the-art technology at the time.
The chief thinks he's being pranked because he's told that the person on the phone is the Sarge, and they're calling them from China.
Oh, man. Where do we start with this one? Let's forget for a moment that Dave catching the chief would still result in his death. Let's ignore the fact that objects impacting the ground from great heights don't puncture the earth. I mean, even large meteorites only leave relatively small craters. And let's also overlook the fact that the heat of the core of the earth would vaporize or at least cook the Sarge. From the time they fell through the ground to the time the guy brings the phone was about 30 seconds.
Wait, no way, Neville. Don't tell me you did the math.
Yep. So, let's assume they were in a hurry to let the chief know that they were okay so he wouldn't replace them and they'd have jobs to come back to. You know, because he's been known to give up on people with very little evidence of their deaths. So let's say it took them 10 seconds to brush themselves off and get to the phone. That means they exited the other side of the Earth 20 seconds after Dave caught the Sarge. We're rounding here, but the Earth is approximately 8,000 miles in diameter. That means they were traveling at 400 miles per second, which is about 1,400,000 miles per hour. So the Sarge fell, and when Dave caught him, they instantly accelerated and stopped at the surface on the other side. The Sarge's brain would be the consistency of snot at this point, but he was still able to make a call and speak coherently.
Neville, I can't believe you didn't catch this, but I'm going to assume it's because you were so focused on the physics involved. It was daytime in both the US and China.
Whoa, wait, what? How did I miss that? Here's my Nitpickers Club membership card. Just shred it. I'm a disgrace.
Wait, Neville, buddy, it's okay. You're still the best movie nitpicker I know. This movie was so full of them you were bound to miss one. Oh man, I should have just kept my mouth shut. So, if you enjoyed this video, please take a second to let us know by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I better go see if he's okay. I need to find a way to cheer him up. Oh, I know. We could watch Smokey and the Bandit 3. That movie's so bad he can nitpick to his heart's content. That should boost his confidence. This is a loyalty card for a pizza place.
Yeah, just come back after it. Mother...
Reread that line.
Okay. Reread yours.
Mine?
No, it was good, but I just need my cue.
I love how they just plan to fly a dangerous rocket over an area and just tell people to do some Damn it! No, shut up, shut up. Don't say anything.